I mean, I have absolutely zero expectations that this is actually going to work. Let's see. He doesn't look a thing like Jesus, but he... I shouldn't sing until I know that I'm that people can see me, because otherwise, for whom am I performing? Right, let's see if we can hear our own voice. He doesn't look a thing like Jesus, but he... There we go. Yeah. Oh, awesome! That's so much fun. Yeah. Yeah, boy. Hello, everyone. The only thing that's worth noting is that I'm doing this on a new laptop. I got a new laptop. It's an okay laptop. I'm a little bit annoyed. It seems to have like crashed a few times, but then maybe it's just a case of, I don't know. Like, I feel like in a way, maybe just all of the best, like even the best laptops in the world crash because work expands to fill available RAM. So no matter like how much you have, it's just going to mean your laptop pushes itself. Anyway. We'll see who ends up being here. And I guess we'll jump in. But yeah, oh no, sorry. So I'm doing it on a new laptop. That means that the aspect ratio is slightly different for the video. So it doesn't really matter, but just bear in mind that's the thing. Anyway, I guess we'll jump in. Continue manager career. We'll definitely do that. All right, yeah. I guess we're just gonna jump in.
Rigorous science, evidence-based politics, and unbiased information. Robert Withers is a Jungian psychoanalyst with 30 years of experience working with researching and writing.
I would like it if someone did let me know, like the second anyone's watching, let me know if there's any like obvious issues with the audio. I know you can't hear the gameplay. That's something I still haven't fixed. I will fix that obviously when we start not reacting to things, but right now it doesn't matter. Anyway.
About people with gender dysphoria. According to him, of the writing Withers has done on these people, I've only been able to find 2 articles he authored. One of those being The Seventh Penis, which... it's retracted. The paper's goal was to explore whether effective analytical work with the issues driving...
Man, jumping back into this stuff, you just have to remind yourself how much nonsense he's talking about. So yeah, obviously, when this all goes up as one massive stream or massive video, nobody's going to appreciate the fact that I had a big break over Christmas, and now I'm back with a renewed sense of purpose, and we're having to... So essentially, you know, just... It's a bit pointless for me to refresh because I guess maybe you guys have seen it quite recently, but just to remind myself, I'll say so much of this is a lot of guilt by association, talking about people who aren't especially important. Oh, well, let me just check. I'm not... Oh, it's at 2 times speed. I apologize for that. I fixed that now. There we go.
A person's determined wish for sex reassignment surgery is possible. Particular consideration is given to how such work might navigate a path between traumatizing and pathologizing the
Man, I did not realize this guy spoke so slowly.
patient on one hand and avoiding important analytical material out of fear of so doing on the other.
He's asking if traumatizing his patients might be a price worth paying for, you know, making them not trans.
I do not consider myself an expert on transsexualism or transgendered states.
Okay, what the hell? Does he or does he not have 25 years of experience? The seventh penis was retracted due to Withers not preserving the confidentiality of his clients, as well as a lack of consent. He even mentions as much in the paper. He was found guilty on 3 counts of misconduct. Since he was so laissez-faire with confidentiality, it made it possible for Transiness, a support group for trans women, to reach out to the client of Withers, allowing her to tell her side of the story.
He puts himself out as this really clever psychotherapist who has had so much experience with trans people, but in actual fact, he's only ever seen 2 trans people in his entire career. I was deeply traumatized by Robert Withers. I found him on YouTube talking with a group of anti-trans activists, and all of a sudden he started making up some rubbish about why he thought I had a dissociative episode. What he didn't mention, and never has, it was because he was being so dominant over me, and during the session he did the whole spreading his legs business. I'm a survivor of sexual violence, and the combination of his body language and what he was doing triggered me. He says he was wanting to not expose me to abuse, but he pursued and abused me nonetheless. Any therapist worth their salt would be very aware of...
Yeah, I don't know who this guy is. I mean, obviously, I feel like it's certainly possible some therapists could be very weird. I don't want to like completely undermine this suggestion that he was like behaving in a way that kind of creeped her out, and that is a legitimate. Oh, sorry, this is probably not an actual woman, but yeah, a legitimate grievance for somebody to have. Like it probably is, but yeah, the most important thing is that who cares about this random guy?
The body language. Not only that, trauma therapists don't launch headlong into opening up experiences of abuse without first concentrating on safety and stabilization.
Traumatizing his patients is a price he's eager to pay, apparently.
Hakim, the next in the list of Kanashji's founders and the top gender expert in the UK, has a particular distaste for trans people. In the book Lectures on Violence, Perversion and Delinquency, Hakim features as the author of one of the chapters. Chapter 10, Transsexuality, a case of the Emperor's new clothes, by Hakim.
It seems very difficult to attempt to understand the mind of a transsexual if the definition of a delusion is that of being...
I feel like the guy shown looked like an Arab, so I'm just going to assume he's not Jewish, otherwise that would be just...
It seems very difficult,
you really putting too much into performance there. I don't know why you've decided to make this guy sound like a nerd, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think the Emperor's New Clothes analogy is a very good analogy for trans ideology. Obviously, it's something where it does seem like everyone's just going along with it, accepting it, when there's really not much logic to it. And yeah, when people start to say, you know what, actually, I don't believe this, most people will be like, yeah, you're right, actually, it doesn't really make much sense. So I'm going to be so out of practice. Yeah, basically... I'd be interested to see whether this guy could possibly give an explanation of how, oh no, actually, it's nothing like the Emperor's New Clothes. Although, of course, yeah, we're not really expecting this guy to actually make an effort to engage with the arguments that are being made.
A firmly held, unshakable false belief, then surely the conviction that one is what one is not is also understood as a delusional disorder.
Hakim is a prime example of a gatekeeper. He believes that the existence of a trans person is contingent on his allowance.
Okay, sorry, okay. Yeah, so I was going to say, because obviously you're not being a gatekeeper if you say that the word woman has a meaning. To be fair, though, like, I mean, this term gatekeeper, it's a bit like No True Scotsman in that it's annoying because sometimes these distinctions are actually worth making, and you're not being a gatekeeper by saying that a word has an actual meaning. I'd say, like, really, gatekeeper only really applies to fandoms, because essentially, if you like something, then you like that thing. And, like, starting this whole drama about, oh, yeah, but do you really like it? Do you like it properly? Do you have all the specialist knowledge? That's kind of just a waste of everyone's time. Yeah, that was really stupid of me. I just was a terrible defense. So, yeah, to be a gatekeeper is actually a good thing if we're talking about defining terms. And yeah, even in the case of trans, I think there is an argument to be made that there could be, like, it's not equally equivalent in terms of stupidity to say that there is some concept that we could understand as being trans, and that is different from just whatever you identify as, that's what you are, compared to the non-gatekept version of trans, which is literally just anyone says they're trans and immediately it's completely legitimate. And that's obviously ridiculous.
He's also too stupid to ask the question why one is.
I should make a post on my thingy, just so that some people show up. You know what song I've got in my head? There's no nice way of saying it. It's that song that goes like, I like little girls, they make me feel so good. So there we go, that's that. That's my sentence right there. Hey everyone, after a Christmas break, I'm back to reacting to that really long video, supposedly debunking transphobia. Post. Lovely. Anyway.
What one is not. I am the only one who thinks, therefore I am the only one that is. Kind of stupid person.
That woman.
Oh, I genuinely, I need to go back, because some of the stuff this guy's saying, like, I'm like, what are you talking about? Let me go back.
As a delusional disorder.
Hakim is a prime example of a gatekeeper. He believes
Okay.
that the existence of a trans person is contingent on his allowance. He's also too stupid to ask the question why one is.
Oh, also, sorry, and the other thing here is it's not about being contingent on someone's allowance. It's about reality. Like, most people should believe, like, you should believe on at least some points that you actually believe that which is true. And as such, since what is true actually matters and isn't just something that isn't just your opinion, that means it compels people. So I would say that you are only positing your... Oh, that was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. You are only positing yourself as an authority if you're taking something that is in fact subjective and saying, oh, because you think that that's what makes you correct. But if you're saying, no, I think that there is some objective reason to think this thing, and then you're saying that you believe it, and because it's subjectively true, everyone else should believe it, that's not you saying you're an authority. That's you saying that truth is the authority, and you happen to be in alignment with truth, which again, for most of your beliefs, that should be taken as a given. So yeah, in the case of trans, obviously we wouldn't say that there's any truth to it. But if someone would say, well, there's a true notion of what it actually means to be trans, then they would say that they think that they have a good idea of what it makes sense to define it as, and they wouldn't say that some random person who's just like kind of making stuff up is an authority. And that's the point. They're not saying that this guy Hakim or whatever, he's not claiming to be the arbiter of this. He's just claiming to be someone who believes that which is true, which is, again, is what most people should claim to believe.
What one is not. I am the only one who thinks, therefore I am the only one that is, kind of.
Okay, yeah, so that was as much of a non sequitur as I thought it was going to be, because I don't know if this guy's like kind of making fun of cogito ergo sum because he thinks, but like, yeah, the reality is that the only thing you can know for absolute certain is that you exist. You can think other people think, and therefore other people exist, and that's probably a reasonable thing to take for granted, but you can't know it.
Stupid person.
That woman, at that point in time, believed that she was a cat. The management of this patient that I thought appropriate was not to collude with her delusional belief and convince myself that she was a cat, but instead try and understand her condition as being an encapsulated psychosis.
To Hakim.
I would be interested, because this guy's like said, oh, like a gatekeeper, and he seems to think, like, again, the belief attributed to this Hakim guy is that there is such a thing as being legitimately trans, because, you know, the claim was someone is only trans if he says so, implying that he would say that some people are trans. I have a suspicion this guy isn't even remotely pro-trans, and this is just another case of trans activists arguing against gender criticals by pretending they're not actually gender critical.
This woman may not have been a cat, but neither was she ever a person. She was her psychosis, and only through her psychosis.
Like, the irony here is that you're the one, like, psychoanalyzing people. You're assuming people's motives. This guy's saying, oh, you know, here's what I thought about this particular case, which, by the way, I would say if you're, like, a professional psychologist, you should, to a large degree, just think about this stuff in terms of, like, cases that need to be solved. But, yeah, like, you're making this up. You're saying, like, oh, you know, this guy clearly just thought of this woman as nothing more than a psychological case. It's like, where are you getting that from? You're just making up other people's motivations for the things they're saying and then getting mad about it. But yeah, you're the one being crazy here. Unless you're going to show some evidence that this guy didn't view this woman to actually be a woman, or, you know, view her to be a human being, you haven't really got a leg to stand on.
Did he try to understand her condition?
To suggest that the core belief defining an individual as transsexual, the belief that one is the gender that one is not, be understood as an encapsulated monodelusional belief is surprisingly controversial.
Trans people are, to Hakim, not only auto-delusional psychotics, but they're also literally freaks.
With surgery allowing us to be increasingly creative, we perhaps believe that we can become the ultimate creator. The danger is that we may actually become more like Dr. Frankenstein.
Hello, Lavender Pilled. Yeah, I was expecting to see you here. And look, I don't want you to get like too self-important, but I will say this. In part, you were one thing I was thinking about when I decided to return back to this. Mostly because you used to comment a lot on my live streams, whereas you don't comment on my scripted videos. And I thought, because in my head I always viewed the live streams to be kind of lazy feeling, and the scripted videos to be a bit more high effort, and I was like, yeah, that's better. But I think there are a few people who only watched the live stream stuff and don't have as much interest in the scripted stuff, which I think there are benefits to live streams, so I guess there's a logic there. And certainly, yeah, you stand out in having been quite an active commenter on the live stream stuff. So I remember I like actually kind of thought to myself after a while of doing the scripted, like, oh, there's like a few people who used to be regulars, but now that I don't do live streams, they're not there anymore. I was like, yeah, I should move on to something else, or move back to that, at least in some capacity. Anyway, yeah, good to have you here.
Not only are they freaks, but they're also barely human. Their entire being is...
You're just like, like, fuck off. Why? You're just making shit up. You're just it's so stupid. And, like, I don't think I do this. And I think there are, like... I remember, like, I think there was this one, like, kind of right-wing channel. I can't remember who it was. I do remember it was a woman, like, one of those kind of women right-wingers that they got nowadays. But, like, a lot of that individual's content would just consist of kind of talking about, like, responding to someone and kind of just making up their motivations for why they're being the way they are, and being like, oh yeah, obviously this guy must be fantasizing about being gay, being a gay, or like, kind of stuff like that. Or like, oh, I imagine this person fantasizes that all the, like, let's say if they're responding to like a video from like a guy who's nominally anti-racist or identifies anti-racist, be like, oh, this guy clearly just hates white people, is obsessed with the idea that black people are like, basically just making up this entire psychology around this person to get mad at them. And like, yeah, this is the thing you see from some very crazy people, but I just think it's always so stupid. Oh, I let it go past. But yeah, it's just always so stupid to do this thing where you're like making up other people's psychology. Especially when it's like, because at the end of the day, you can just say, oh, I think this guy, like, you can just get mad at someone and just say you think they're like a dickhead or a loser or whatever. But to try and be like really serious about it, act like you're actually saying something true about them is dumb. I don't know. I'm not sure if I've ever been a hypocrite on this point, but I hope I haven't, because I do think it is genuinely really stupid.
Sick, twisted, and incomprehensible unreality.
Such a flight away from mindfulness may be a reflection of how difficult it is to try and think about the disturbance created in the transition.
What video should I not skip? Well, I mean, assuming, like, just taking all of them, I don't know, this is a bit of a pleb thing to say, because I'm just going to be like, well, my most popular video, which is the one debunking trans identity comprehensively. I'm not sure. It would be an interesting question to consider what video I would say is like a hidden gem. I might actually, later on, just have a go through my recent videos and just say, oh, that one didn't get many views. That one's, I mean, one that is kind of a hidden gem in the, why do I keep doing that? That's so stupid. I mean, I deserve to concede a goal. One that I'd say is kind of a hidden gem, in my estimation, is the one where I just do what am I doing? Okay, there we go. Basically Q&A. I thought that video was just fun because it was like basically a variety show responding to lots of stuff. And there were like a variety of questions, some more kind of serious and like philosophical or political, others much more, like personal. So yeah, that was an interesting video. But yeah, I'll have a look for what I'd consider a true hidden gem.
Mind.
Hakeem's distantly amused reaction to the possible suffering of the people who come to him for help is, to me, just fucking nauseating. But really,
shut up.
The thesis of this chapter is...
It's, look, I don't know, it's the way doctors are, right? And I've said this before. I think I would be surprised if I haven't already said this in this thing. I think doctors have to be psychopaths. I knew this guy who, was like one of my friends from school. I think he became a brain surgeon. And he was telling me, yeah, like at university, the most recent thing I was doing was looking at a cadaver and cutting open this dead person's skull, rummaging around in their brain, seeing how it works. I mean, you're doing something wonderful. Like the fact you're a brain surgeon, you're like saving people from brain tumors, absolutely fantastic. You are a psychopath. Like, I don't see how a normal, well-adjusted person can actually do that. And it applies a lot. I even think like paramedics. I don't know. Like, I think like, because in the case of paramedics, obviously, it's not quite as inhuman as like literally cutting open cadavers. But like a paramedic must, on a somewhat regular basis, go to places where people are on the verge of dying. And as such, they must see some number of people dying. I mean, I'm someone who can't even handle like any of the medical stuff. So to me, it's all just crazy. But again, I really appreciate people do that. And that's kind of the thing, right? So I think lots of doctors are probably in some way kind of like psychopaths. But, you know, they have to be.
Exposing the lies of trans people, that they are deluding not only themselves, but also the people around them. And that we should not let such lying, scheming filth think that.
Again, just making stuff up. I'm doing a thing I always do. I think I got out of the habit, but now I'm back into it. What am I saying? A common thing has been the fact that I just instinctively kind of hunch over when I'm playing games means that I get really bad shoulder pain. So I'm going to go make a chamomile tea just to have a little break. I could play, like, at this point, I honestly could play the video just to kind of, I don't know, I was going to say, like, get something out. What do I mean? I could play the video to get some progress done, and let's be honest, not respond to much of it. I almost thought I'd frozen for a second, but it's basically, I forgot the image was being mirrored. So my actual hand that's on my left, this is my left hand, but it appears to be on the right of me on your screen, I would guess. So I was sat there looking at my right hand, which looks like it's on my left. Whatever. Anyway, I don't know. Do I want to play? I'll play the video. I'll try and make some progress.
That they are anything they're not. That's why the chapter is called Emperor's New Clothes, because according to Hakim, the people need to see through the deception and call it out. Anywhere, always.
This takes us back again to the story of the Emperor, where it was the young boy who had the freedom to express his honest feelings, was able to be true to himself and not collude with the madness and deception he found all around him. It is interesting that one of my patients has reported that an indicator of how convincing he is as a woman, or how successful that deception is to walk down the street in public around the time that schools are closing. The very politically incorrect honesty mixed with the unfortunate cruelty of children allow this individual to gauge whether he...
I will say, to be fair, it is a little bit weird, I guess, to be actively working as a psychologist with trans-identified people while writing a academic, quite unambiguous debunking of trans ideology. Like, I would say that at that point you should not be functioning as a psychologist to trans-identified people unless they know that. Like, that's something you should be disclosing. It just seems a bit weird to me to be like talking to a trans-identified person, talking through their trans identification, and then going and writing a book where you are debunking them. Where you're saying, like, I mean, it's almost, this is not entirely appropriate as an analogy, and I don't mean like it's inappropriate as in like it's rude or anything, but like the idea in my head is having a Catholic priest who still does like the sermons and all of that stuff, and like does confession and does like a lot of the roles of the priest, but is then like on the side writing books about how actually they think Catholicism is complete nonsense. Yeah, I mean, by all means, like if this is someone who, like if there are some trans people out there who want to talk things through and essentially realize that it is nonsense, and they kind of just want, you know, basically they're open to the fact that this is someone who's critical, that's fine. I feel like Benjamin Babish with like, hey everyone, it's just because I can't go up to sit down because I'm in the middle of making my chamomile tea. Yeah, that's fine. But to be quite actively, openly critical of it, that's... and referencing people you've spoken to, I think that is a bit of a conflict of interest. You know, like either like you can be like you can personally have issues with it, and or you can have casual relationships with trans people to be simultaneously professionally a critic of trans ideology and professionally working with trans people. It's a bit weird. I can understand why. I don't know. If I like, I have issues with anxiety. So obviously anxiety is like unambiguously a real thing. But if I went to see a therapist about anxiety, and then I saw that they were writing articles about how anxiety is kind of stupid and, you know, we shouldn't be taking it seriously, I would be a bit like, oh, okay, that's probably something you should have told me. Anyway. Right, okay. Apologies, everyone. Getting the job I have now is why I never started my own channel, for exactly the reason you were describing. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I had a job where I was working with children. I think I've said what my job was. I think I said it in my what's it called? Q&A. My job used to be running the social media account for a school, because, you know, schools, which it was an interesting job, because, yeah, you know, schools do have like Facebook pages and stuff like that. Someone needs to post that stuff, blah blah blah. That was me. That was my very important job. And the thing is, I don't think I was really very aware of any trans person. I think there was one. Well, actually, you know what? The only thing I know, and I guess I could talk about this now, and also, you know, this is very vague, but like basically, the only person I know of who was like trans was someone who was non-binary and was basically a crazy person, in that they literally brought a dead rat to school. And everyone, again, it was kind of like people talk about the Emperor's New Clothes thing, the fact everyone knows this is like not actually accurate deep down. All of the people kind of behind the scenes in the staff, and again, like, this isn't like, no one's going to know exactly what school is working for, whatever, so I can say all of this, it's fine, was basically like, oh man, you know, these non-binary people, I think deep down we know they're all pretty crazy. That's the funny thing, really. Like, even though I talk about this, it's not something I really talk about much in personal life. Partially just because I talk about so much here I don't want to talk about in personal life. So as such, like, 9 times out of 10, whenever the trans issue is coming up, the majority of other people in the room will be more vocally critical of it than I am. For all I know, there's lots of other people who are like, oh, I think Michael might be like really pro-trans, because every single time that we're complaining about trans people, he's never saying anything. When really, it's just that, like, you know, I feel like I don't really have as much to say about it on a personal level. Whereas, yeah, like, everyone else is like, oh, you know, have you heard about this trans thing, blah, blah, blah.
Is successful in his endeavors of deceit and control of others when the level of remarks passed by children will be few. In contrast, if his deception is unsuccessful, this will be manifest in much taunting and humiliation. It seems that in our...
Yeah. I mean, obviously it is. So yeah, basically the story's here about like what a guy who actually, this is kind of, so that's kind of an interesting story. You know what? I mean, I kind of like already was thinking this is creepy. And I don't know, like, I guess it's a different level of creepy. I kind of thought the point would be like, oh, I wanted to walk past like kids, because I thought kids would be sort of more naive and they wouldn't really be thinking about the possibility of someone being trans. But what this like individual actually seems to be saying is, according to this account, that he wanted to hang out with kids because kids are more likely to make fun of him. So therefore, it's like that's the real test. Which in a way, like, and I guess that is kind of appropriate to the Emperor's new clothes thing, because of course in the Emperor's new clothes, it's like one of the points is that little kids just speak their mind. So if something's coming from a kid, you know, like that's their actual opinion. So I guess maybe that is a good test of authenticity.
Profession. It is only the psychoanalytical psychotherapist or the similarly informed psychiatrist, and only the more vocal, braver ones at that, who take on the role of the boy in the story and are able to present the voice of reality rather than the voice of the perceived majority who are seen to collude with the fantasy and deception.
This theme comes to a head in the final pages of the chapter, where Hakim discusses how society should never treat a trans person with respect, because
Shut up.
imagine the horror.
No, again, I would love to hear the quote where he never says treat them with respect. It better not be don't acknowledge that their claims about themselves are accurate, because of course someone's claims about themselves, you can disagree with someone's claims about themselves while still respecting them. So I'm ready for this.
People would be subject to should trans people, by chance, ever be seen as equal.
Of course, neither I nor any of the other clinicians with whom I work are opposed to a transsexual being allowed the right to marry, but our objections are that they are allowed to marry as a person of the sex, which they are not. A similarly related ongoing battle currently in process is the fight for the transsexual to be allowed to change the gender specified on their birth certificate. Again, we are faced with deception. A further illustration of the deception would be the possibility arising in the event of both the aforementioned pieces of legislation. They could result in a man marrying what he presumes to be a woman who had a female passport, a birth certificate declaring him to be female at birth, who is taken to be female, and an individual whom he believed he could marry and who could be the mother of his children, but in reality his wife is actually being a man. I'm so I don't know why this one infuriates me so much. I should have become desensitized to this by now. Hakim?
Yeah, I don't know why this one infuriates you so much, and I want to know. Right, so I need to bring Sergio Garcia on. Like, that's clearly where it's at. Yeah. This is, I mean, whatever. I'll hear why it infuriates him.
Is an advisor to the UK LGBT Alliance group who wants to sever ties with the T in LGBT. Neither Hakim nor LGBT Alliance believes in the existence of trans people.
Gender ideology is made up. It's a social construct. It's a cult belief. The transgender crisis is a current form of youth subculture. You know, like punks and goths.
LGBT Alliance was formed to oppose the emancipation of trans people and to support the rights of gays, lesbians and bisexuals, which is weird because one of the LGBT Alliance founders, Bev Jackson, argues for working with the Heritage Foundation to...
Okay, so to be fair, like, credit for actually admitting that, the LGBT Alliance is about fighting for gay people's rights. Obviously, there is no... It's not weird to support something, but argue that there can be a place for alliances of convenience. That is not actually weird. You are mistaken. So just hope we're all clear about that. Hope that helps. Let me know any other points of confusion you have going forward.
bring down the trans movement.
The Heritage Foundation is anti-climate change, is against same-sex marriage, abortion, and they founded Project 2025. You might say they would salute the words, "We must secure the existence of our people and the future for American children."
What are you doing here? Like, it's so many degrees of separation. Well, not exactly so many degrees of separation, but essentially what you're saying here is that Bev Jackson defended work in the Heritage Foundation, and the Heritage Foundation are basically Nazis because they support Project 2025. Which, look, Project 2025, whatever. I'm not going to get into like all of the broader politics beyond the trans thing, but I don't think it's reasonable, because look, here's the thing. there are people who support Palestine who will say, well, you know, when it comes to opposing Israel, I don't care if we're working with Islamists. I don't care if we're working with anti-Semites. There are left-wing progressives who will platform Nick Fuentes because they both agree on an opposition to Zionism. The reality is that this is not a criticism of a particular group. This is a criticism that you can make if you want to against something that exists in all groups. Every single group has people who believe in alliances of convenience. Some people, by the way, believe in alliances of convenience on some issues, but not on others. For example, you know, if you ever see me talking about religion, and especially if you like ask me about a particular religious apologist, like someone like David Wood, I'll always say, well, I don't like the fact that he's so into alliances of convenience, that he's got his issue with Islam and he will work with basically anyone if they also oppose Islam as well. So, that's a criticism I've made of him. But again, you have to understand this difference between some people within a group support alliances of convenience. And let me say, I support alliances of convenience in some cases. But that doesn't mean that this isn't... even if that was an issue, it wouldn't be an issue for a particular ideology, because all ideologies have this aspect of alliances of convenience. It's just not a good argument at all.
Both Beth Jackson and co-founder Alison Bailey incidentally promoted the work of Jennifer Beleg, who, if you remember, is the neo-Nazi Helen Joyce used as a source for her book. Malcolm Clark, a third co-founder of LGBT Alliance, argued against LGBT clubs in schools since predatory gay teachers might exploit the situation. Clark also argued that the true ideal of the transgender movement was to transform the UK into the Islamic Republic of Iran. They are truly sending their best here, okay? Let's go a bit faster and fill this thing.
Wait a minute, let me, what was the...
Was to transform the UK. Also argued true ideal of the transgender movement was to transform the UK into the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yeah, so that's almost certainly with reference to the fact that in Iran, they actually have a rule that basically says if you are gay, then essentially the way that's dealt with is that you identify as trans. Iran literally has trans the gay away as official state policy. And yeah, that's the point being made. Now, obviously, it's not accurate to say that that is the entirety of their goal in life. But what he's getting at is that sometimes, with a lot of what they're saying, it will have the same result.
They are truly sending their best here, okay?
Yeah, well, that's
Let's go a bit faster and fill this thing out.
Yeah, like that's thinking, like, oh, look, they're truly sending their best here. But there's actually nothing particularly ridiculous about that claim.
Okay, CanSG's last important founder is Stella O'Malley. Not only is she the founder of CanSG, she's also in charge of the podcast Gender A Wider Lens and Genspect. She co-hosts Gender A Wider Lens with Sasha Ayad, where they interview, well, anyone with a view on gender that differs from the norm, as long as they are fundamentally against trans people, of course.
Genspect is one of the largest gender-critical organizations, featuring advisors such as Hakeem, Sasha Ayad, Lisa Littman, Abigail Schreier, Julia Mason, Kathleen Goonan, and Lisa Marchiano.
Lisa Marchiano is the founder of Therapy First.
I'm always Goonan.
But she was also a key member in at least 4 other organizations. Lisa Marchiano, or as she sometimes goes by, Lisa Bell, was the founder of the now abandoned Youth Transcritical Professionals, the same website linked to in Lisa Littman's studies, the same Lisa Bell, or Marchiano, who Julia Serrano believed to have created the hypothesis of rapid onset gender dysphoria. More on that later. Marchiano was one of the members of International Association of Therapists for Desisters.
Isn't Macchiato a type of coffee?
And detransitioners. And even though the organization is also closed down and abandoned, we can still find remnants of the other members. Those being Stella O'Malley, Sasha Ayad, Kirsty Entwistle, Anastasis Biliadis, and Anna Hutchinson. Yet another abandoned organization was Gender Exploratory Therapy Association. Maybe the name was a bit too revealing. GETA's founders included Stella O'Malley, Sasha Ayad, Susan.
See, the issue is, like, he spent so long, like, kind of, you could say, making actual criticisms of the people he was talking about, but that was when he was talking about, like, really unrelated people. And now that he's talking about people who are actually pretty significant, like, in GenSpect, even if he could make a criticism, by the way, it wouldn't prove anything about, like, transfer. Like, it would still be just an ad hominem fallacy, but whatever. He's not even really making any arguments. He's basically just saying, oh, these people are gender critical. It's kind of like pretty much all this guy's video has been, well, these people who often aren't even gender critical, but if they are gender critical, they're pretty insignificant people within the gender critical movement. They have done objectively terrible things. And then when he's actually criticizing the people who are meaningfully gender critical, his only argument is, oh, they are gender critical, which of course isn't actually an argument at all, except in that it's circular.
Evans and Roberto D'Angelo, one of their advisors were Robert Withers, and in 2024, Geta became Therapy First. Finally, the largest of the abandoned anti-trans organizations, Pediatric and Adolescent Gender Dysphoria Working Group. Sasha Ayad, Stella O'Malley, Anastasis Biliadis, Robert Withers and Roberto D'Angelo counted among their members. What sets this group apart is the amount of old guard and people with interesting affiliations. Other members included Michael Bailey, Ray Blanchard, Susan Bradley, James Cantor, Michael Laidlaw and Kenneth Zucker.
Hey, the Imperial Wizard. I took a break, but I'm back and better than Ezra.
I've already covered Zucker, Bradley and Cantor, but what's the deal with Blanchard and Bailey? Blanchard coined the term autogynephilia from earlier. He also wanted...
Well, hold on, yeah, I'm surprised you haven't got around to Blanchard yet. He's like really... I feel like you have spoken about Blanchard, but maybe not. Anyway, whatever. Again, Blanchard is another person who's arguably just GC light as opposed to being, like, properly anti-trans.
To introduce hebephilia into the DSM as a distinction from pedophilia. Hebephilia then is this...
You know what, look, I'm going to say this. I don't care. It just has to be said. There is a difference between... Because I actually saw this recently. There was a guy... I didn't even know about this guy, to be fair. But, like, there's this guy in the UK called Ian Watkins. And he was, like, a rock star, I guess. Although not that famous. And he... basically was inappropriate with kids. That's what it is. But I saw like the charges, and the charge was basically sexual assault of a minor under 12 years of age. Like that was the specific charge. And I was like, yeah, it does make sense to distinguish that because it is a different thing. Because one, you're literally like talking prepubescent. The other one, you're like I would, can I just lock this in? I feel like if it's a baby, I mean it's disgusting to even talk about this stuff, but like a baby, that's like evil. Like that's like you're like just insane. And I wouldn't say like it gets worse as it gets younger, but it does get like more sick as it gets younger. Like, and obviously that there is a joke about like, oh, she was 17 years and 364 days. And like obviously that's kind of the joke we make. But anyway, the reason why I say they're like different is just because they are different psychologically. Like you don't even have to argue that one is worse than the other. And I would stop myself short of saying that one is worse than the other. I think you could make an argument one is worse than the other, but yeah, I don't think you have to say that. But they're like obviously different because one of them is about emotional maturity. And that's why you shouldn't do it. Like, obviously, like, emotional maturity is really important. But there's the fact that the desire itself is... I don't want to say normal exactly, but it's not... It's not, like, intrinsically sick. Because it's kind of, like, whatever. And I guess the other difference here is sometimes, in maybe very few cases, you might not even be able to tell. Like, there might be some... 16-year-olds out there who look like they're 20, and there might be some 20-year-olds who look like they're 16. So there's that situation as well. Whereas obviously when you're talking about pedophilia, you literally, like by definition, you can tell. You can't say, oh no, you know what, actually there's some 11-year-olds who look post-pubescent. Because the whole point is that they're prepubescent. So they're just different things psychologically. Because one of them is about a failure to recognize the moral importance of emotional maturity when it comes to a relationship, and the other one is about your sex drive is just not even slightly wired properly. They're just different things. So I do think they should be recognized, even if they're the same legally, right? You could actually say, oh no, there should be the exact same legal punishment. But as far as like psychological analysis is concerned, I don't think it makes sense to take a guy who exploited a 15-year-old girl because he like saw her as emotionally easy to manipulate. That's like a nasty, like there's lots of issues there, like that's nasty whatever. But I don't think it makes sense to say that's the same thing psychologically as a guy who sexually is attracted to a prepubescent person. They're very different.
Sexual arousal to children aged 11 to 14 instead of just children. Why would anyone try to make a pedo light?
So yeah, for the exact reason. And again, by the way, note, unless he said this, because it is like if you try to say this and then be like, oh, actually one's not as bad as the other, that's totally different. I actually think, and I've said this before, I think you could make an argument that morally speaking, hebephilia is worse, because hebephilia, that is you. At that point, why wouldn't you just go for someone who's like your age, right? Because at least with a pedophile, you can be like, well, clearly they're like wired so wrong that them living a normal life is off the cards. Like, I don't think that someone who's actually attracted to literal children can ever just kind of suppress it and live a normal life, because clearly they're just like totally messed up in the head. Whereas if you're like, oh, well, you know, I'm attracted to 15-year-olds. All right, well, if you're attracted to a 15-year-old, then why wouldn't you be attracted to an 18-year-old? Like, why is it you're specifically attracted to, even though they're like physically very similar, attracted to the younger girl? Well, obviously it's because you're abusive and you're just in it for the sake of being emotionally manipulative. So yeah, they're both gross. That's where I'm at. And honestly, like, I would have serious moral condemnations of both, but I would almost have like a greater moral condemnation of the, again, and it's like meme that people even talk about this, but like the ephebophilia or hebephilia, whatever people call it, I'd have like a greater moral condemnation of that, because I'd be like, okay, well at that point, like, you don't even have, like, you could have just been attracted to girls your age at that point, or women, I should say, your age, and you literally chose to go after someone who you felt you could emotionally manipulate, and that's messed up. So yeah, that's like evil. Oh
no, really, imagine.
How long do I stream nowadays? Typically hour and a half, so we're only halfway there. Living on a prayer.
Why anyone would do that? Blanchard, in another stroke of genius.
Again, it's ridiculous, and like, again, it's just, I don't. It annoys me that like Reddit has kind of ruined the whole like the fact it's memed. It really bothers me, because psychologically they are different. It's just like, you have to accept. Like, is anyone genuinely going to claim that they think that a statutory, let's call it what it is. Let's not mince words. A statutory rapist who manipulates and sexually abuses 15-year-old girls, is anyone going to argue psychologically that is exactly the same as a rapist who sexually abuses babies? Are you actually going to argue those two things are psychologically the same? I don't think anyone does. If you want to argue that they are both morally equivalent and that they are both just evil, fine. But they're not. Like, I think it would be very weird for a psychologist to look at those two scenarios as the same.
Wanted to remove the pathologization of pedophilia, turning it into a sexual orientation instead of a diagnosis. He argues that it should be okay to fantasize and masturbate to the thought of children. It is unclear what she...
No. I mean, look, I don't even want to, like, when you get into that territory, I don't even want to talk about it. Like, you can talk about the fact that and I don't know, yeah, whatever. This guy's criticizing it, and I'm criticizing it, so we can just agree that's gross. But again, no... I mean, let's bring this back to what it's really about, which is the gender critical movement. What does any of this have to do with gender critical movement? In fact, if anything, I would say that the gender critical movement is more likely to be overly intolerant of this stuff. Like, one reason why I'm kind of being a bit defensive around this point is because I know that the gender critical movement, they're the types of people who will like post memes like, look, I found it, the cure for pedophilia, and it will be, you know, like a loaded gun. And, you know, that's like, and you know that like video of that, I think, German woman, sorry, I apologize, I shouldn't say girl, because in this case I'm very much not talking about a girl. This German woman who like snuck into court with a gun and shot the guy who sexually assaulted and I believe murdered her daughter. And I see that like quite regularly because I see it being retweeted by gender critical accounts like, yeah, this is a queen, blah blah blah, which, you know, yeah, fair enough, whatever. I'm not saying they're wrong. But yeah, the point is that I feel like the gender critical movement on balance, largely because it has so many radical feminists who, you know, are obviously very averse to male sexual violence. I don't think that would be an extreme assessment or, you know, an inaccurate assessment. It's actually the movement that is very much like... It seems weird to say intolerant because, of course, everyone is, but, like, literally, let's round them up and lynch them. Like, that level. Which, again, not that I judge. But yeah, that's the point. It's just very weird to be like, oh, I tell you what the problem is with the gender critical movement that is filled with, like, these radical feminists, these conservatives, these Marxists. I mean, bear in mind that you talk about like you know, one of the things that people celebrate about Stalinism and sort of this hardcore Marxism is the fact they didn't tolerate degeneracy. And, you know, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have done too well under like Stalin's regime. And you have that meme of like, you know, all of those like communists like protecting their kids from the gay guy. I don't know if you guys you've seen it, but there's like a meme of like this guy like, yeah, workers of the world unite, and you have like the Thomas Sankara and Fidel Castro and Stalin, and they're like, don't look, kids, stay away. Anyway, the point is, it's just very weird to be like, yeah, the gender critical movement, they're really pro pedophile. They're very much not. And the trans movement is far more pro pedophile. Absolutely. Like, I guarantee if you got all of the most pro-trans people and all of the most anti-trans people together, and you had like a poll on like, hey, should we have some accommodation for pedophiles to be able to express and live out their sexuality, 100% the pro-trans side would be the most. And like, look, I could talk about the fact that Vorsh is a big pro-trans guy. I debated him. That makes him pretty pro-trans. And of course, he had his whole like pedo thing. You know, people have called him out for all sorts of stuff there. So, yeah, it's just a ridiculous argument, and I'm embarrassed for you.
Anything would be lost by excluding such persons from the diagnosis of mental disorder. It does not need to be pathologized as long as you, yourself, don't feel distressed about it, and as long as you don't go out of your way to sexually assault children. Thrice. As a reminder, yes, Blanchard very...
Don't go out of your way is a funny way of putting it. It's almost like implying, like, you know, it's a lot of effort. And it's like, well, I don't think the effort's the most important thing. I think the intent is really the problem, in my estimation.
Very much want to pathologize trans people in all circumstances. Now, Michael Bailey didn't believe in male bisexuality.
So, no, to be fair, can I say this? Like, I remember when there was a whole controversy about like Gen Spect and all that, and I remember the substance of the controversy was, oh, the problem with these people is they think that, so like a lot of the actual kind of hardcore gender critical people were saying the problem is these people think that autogynephiles should be free to live out their sexual fetish. Autogynephiles should be free to dress as women. I think some would even say, oh, you know, in some contexts they should be free to enter women's spaces. Sorry, I was just taking a moment to... yeah. That was the main criticism. These people, they're pro autogynephiles living out their life as long as they're not harming anyone. And then these people would say, and also the problem is that they think the same thing about pedophilia. Like, I remember, and obviously, you know, I don't know, I feel like there's been some drama around her, but Karen Davis used to be a pretty prominent gender critical, and I think she, I don't know, through various dramas, none of which I was really involved in, I think she's fallen out of prominence. But yeah, basically, I remember she was like a big pusher against, Gen Spect are terrible because so many people in the Gen Spect movement want to accommodate autogynephilia or argue that autogynephilia isn't that bad as long as they're not like actively kind of harming women. It's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. And then that was being explicitly related to, and also they basically have the same stance on pedophilia. That, yeah, being a pedophile, as long as you're not harming children, as long as it's just in your head, as long as it's just something you're acting out or fantasizing about, but not actually doing, it's not a problem. So it's just really strange to have this guy come along and be like, oh no, you see, the thing about these people is that they hate trans people loads, but they're pro-pedophilia. It's like, actually, if anything, this is an argument against them, because when you understand a reality, you understand that all of these, like, Gen Spec people who had some willingness to accommodate pedophilia, they were already disliked by the gender critical movement because they had so much willingness to accommodate trans ideology.
Sexuality until he discovered it in 2020. Incredible. At least he keeps up with the ContraPoints drama on Twitter.
I kind of am interested in what these tweets are saying. Okay, let's score a goal and then we'll look at these tweets because I want to know what the situation is here. Wait, ContraPoints drama on Twitter. Doesn't Contra just immediately run away as soon as there's drama on Twitter? I swear, like, every single thing I've seen from Contra has just been like a tiny bit of drama followed by an immediate deletion of all tweets, especially when a philosophy tube is being called out. Okay, let's just have a look. Okay.
And really seems to
So we just come back to Jennifer Billock. Whatever. Okay, fine. I don't know. I retweet Nick Fuentes because sometimes I think he's funny. It's not that big of a deal.
like Charles Murray. And for some reason, like the tweet of Trump talking about his nice jeans for 3 minutes, which close.
Honestly, like, also the thing about me and Twitter, and I'm maybe not a good example, a lot of the time I just like tweets that I feel are like most controversial because I find those tweets funny. So yeah, maybe I'm not like a good standard for what makes sense with kind of appropriate behavior on Twitter, because yeah, like the amount of times I see, I think like the best example I saw of this recently, this is my go-to example of where I'm at in terms of making, or basically like the kind of stuff I retweet. Wait, I'll just have a quick drink. So there's this comedian in the UK called Rosie Jones, and Rosie Jones has cerebral palsy or something like that. I could do an impression of her. It's a really good impression, but I'm not going to. But essentially, as you can imagine, she literally is not particularly capable of talking. She can't talk with any real flow. She stumbles over her words a lot. She, a lot of the time, slurs her words in a way where it makes it almost impossible to hear what she's saying. And I actually, you know what, I might actually find the clip just so you can hear, because it would have been like not too long ago. It would have been at Christmas or near Christmas. So I'm going to find it because why not? That's what we're about. And then while I'm at it, I'll just explain the context. So essentially, you know, as you can kind of imagine, a lot of people therefore think this woman, she really just shouldn't be a comedian. She's, you know, I don't have a problem with disabled people being able to live their life, but just the nature of the disability she has means she just blatantly cannot actually be a good comedian. And I saw someone retweet a video of her at Christmas, and they retweeted it with the words, "Imagine a boot stepping on a human face forever." And what's really funny about that is a George Orwell reference to fascism. And I just found it so funny for someone to be suggesting that the fact that a woman with cerebral palsy is being platformed as a comedian is equivalent to the fascistic stepping on a human face by a shoe. And yeah, that the confluence of the intensity of that was really hilarious to me, and that's why I retweeted it. And I've almost now found the clip so you can hear the reference, because it was just really funny to me seeing this video retweeted with the caption, "Imagine a boot stepping on a human face forever." You know what? I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's been... Oh, here it is. Okay, I found it. Yeah, okay. I'll read the quote exactly. So the quote is, "Imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever, George Orwell." And this is the accompanying clip.
Merry fucking Christmas! I am Rosie. I am your gay Christmas tree.
Look, people are going to accuse me of ableism. I don't know. It's just, to me it's ridiculous. I mean, I just find it very funny, this idea. And like, so that's what, and I retweeted that. I retweeted without any context. I retweeted it to my thousands upon thousands of followers just because I thought it was funny for that sentiment to be expressed. Just to be like, yeah, you know what George Orwell was envisioning when he wrote about like a boot stamping on a human face forever as a representation of fascism. Do you know what he had exactly in mind when he said that?
Merry fucking Christmas! I am Rosie. I am your gay Christmas tree.
There we go. That's it. Merry Christmas, everyone. Anyway.
Focuses on his proudness of having German genes. The tweet was made...
Oh, yeah, sorry. So the point there, just to clarify, you know, in case you thought there wasn't one, is that sometimes people just retweet things. And I just feel like this whole thing of like, oh, look at what this person's doing on Twitter. Isn't that suspicious? Like, genuinely, I don't know. I actually had someone ask me, like, when you retweet things, what does that actually mean? Like, what are you actually getting at with your retweets? Do you endorse things that you retweet? And I just said, oh, I just retweet things that I think are funny. And they were like, okay, fine.
By a self-proclaimed Nazi. No, I don't think Bailey is actually a Nazi. Rather, I think he's too stupid to realize that he likes Nazi tweets and philosophies.
No, okay, so look, let me clarify. I like Nazi tweets and philosophies. I realize that. I think it's funny. No, I mean, I don't like the thing is, again, the philosophies. It's kind of like, well, what do you mean by philosophies? Like, there's some... I recently watched a video explaining what fascism... And this is the definition they gave of fascism. They were like, oh, the definition of fascism is it is neither conservative nor progressive. Rather, it is arguing that we as a society should have a mind towards future and past generations. That we should remember past generations and maintain traditions, maintain the culture, maintain the history and the heritage that has been built up by those past generations. But we should also look towards the future and aspire to build a world that is able to accommodate the next generation and make sure they can keep pushing forwards. Now, I'm sorry, but to me that actually sounds like a pretty great ideology. Like, I'm like, that actually sounds pretty good. So it's like you respect the past, you honor the past, but you also look towards forging a greater future. So I was like, oh no, you know, you really made fascism sound pretty great there. But again, am I meaningfully a fascist? No, because I'm like cool. But that's the issue, is saying like, oh, you know, you support fascist philosophies. And never mind like supporting like fascist people. There's many reasons why you might support fascist people. Again, maybe you just think they're funny, and that's valid.
All of these people and organizations are pro-gender identity change efforts, conversion therapy. Their argument is that sexuality is innate and...
Okay, it did not occur to me that gender identity change efforts would be conversion therapy. I thought gender identity change efforts would be where you change your gender identity by identifying as trans. But yeah, I mean, let's say
should not be changed, but gender identity is simply a subculture, a fetish, a contagion.
Yeah,
it doesn't harm anyone.
There's many aspects of why gender identity is different. Gender identity, first of all, I really could have screwed something out there. I just kicked a wire. Gender identity does not have a clear definition at all. So that's just that. That's that. But then even the way it can be defined, it's just different from sexuality. So whatever. I just think that you're they're right.
When you try to change their gender. In fact, it's the morally right choice. That real conversion therapy is electroshock and vomiting, Pavlovian conditioning and shaming, that these gender activists are too stupid to realize that what they're protesting is for their own good, actually. No, they should count themselves lucky. In December 2020, a committee meeting on justice and human rights was held with regards to Bill C-6 in the House of Commons in Canada. Bill C-6 sought to prohibit conversion therapy. The opening remarks were made by a former client.
Yeah, shouldn't be. I mean, look, I've already spoken about conversion therapy, I think, at length earlier on, so we're not going back to that.
Of Kenneth Zucker.
I am a survivor of trans conversion therapy. Dr. Zucker saw me as a patient for 7 years, from the ages of 16 to 23, and denied me trans-affirming healthcare in the form of both hormones and surgery until I was 22. Dr. Zucker instead put me through what he has termed desistance treatment for trans youth. He interrogated me in talk therapy for hours at a time, inquisitorially attacking, damaging, and attempting to destroy my identity and my self-esteem, and to make me ashamed and hateful of myself. Years into treatment, he had condemned me to the fate that I wished to avoid, the very one I asked him every session to save me from. He made my body a prison, and it is to this day. Conversion therapy almost broke me, and I live with its physical and emotional scars to this day, but I was only a small part of Zucker's practice. Zucker and his colleagues are the international proponents and researchers of conversion therapy for trans people of all ages across the world. Whatever these theories and papers call their practices.
I like your Michael Bailey, Morton Bailey joke.
Autogynephilia, rapid onset gender dysphoria, watchful waiting, or desistance therapy by Zucker and Blanchard and Littman and Cantor and Bailey and Bradley and so many others. They all have one thing in common. They are all conversion therapies and practices for trans people. There are many briefs in front of the committee stating that gender-affirming care is actually conversion therapy for gay, lesbian or bisexual youth, and that gender identity should be removed from the purview of Bill C-6. I implore you, do not listen to them. The wounds that Zucker caused me can never be undone. I don't know if I'll be able to heal and feel right or whole or right as a person ever again.
Everyone I've mentioned and everyone I'm going to mention are opponents of gender-affirming care. They're all against banning conversion therapy for gender identity. They are all enemies to trans people.
Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine.
How many people do you think are actually TRAs or support of gender ideology? I mainly hang out in alternative spaces, so I'm pretty much in a TRA echo chamber. Most people do not support it. I think like the average normal, like I'm a normie. I'm a certified normie. I mean, if I don't know, I go to, like a lot of people I know are from like church, so obviously those people aren't really part of a TRA echo chamber. But also, you know, like a lot of people just from like university, just like a lot of people from like normal aspects of life, and yeah, most people just do not support this trans identity thing. And even if they do, again, like people who actually support trans identity, they support it in terms of like, oh, if a bloke wants to wear a dress, whatever, who am I to judge? Which is a different question from thinking, you know, like, how many people agree with Judith Butler? Not very many, I promise you that.
Held in 2023, a conference featuring more than 30 experts from different parts of the world. They got together to discuss experiences and concerns of clinical staff working at youth gender clinics and to review current treatment guidelines through the lens of evidence-based gender medicine. When CanSG, Sex Matters, GenSpect and others mentions evidence-based gender medicine, this is what it's led up to. it's also become a dog whistle. The conference
I think what's like annoying me, the whole problem with this like conspiracy theory thing is that a conspiracy theory is not a debunk, right? Like just because you've drawn a conspiracy theory around it, like even like, I don't know, like this guy's like mentioned Nazism a lot, like showing that there was some like elaborate Nazi or like you've got all these people connected and blah blah blah, none of that actually shows that Nazism is incorrect. I think like you can make a intellectual criticism of Nazism, but just showing like, oh, you know, all of these people are really connected and they've all like done and said bad things not directly relevant to Nazism, but you know, they are bad. That's like kind of, if anything, you're almost being, it's almost like a problem that you're using such bad arguments instead of engaging with the actual substance of what you're critiquing. Because in that case, you should be critiquing it more directly.
featured, among others, Anna Hutchinson, Hannah Barnes, Lisa Littman, Roberto D'Angelo, Kenneth Tucker, Michael Biggs, Sasha Ayad, Kathleen Goonan, and William Malone. Looking through SecM's advisors, we find Sasha Ayad, Lisa Macchiano, Anastasis Biliadis, and Michael Biggs, who is also known as Mr. Henry Wimbush. SecM lists 5 founders on the website: Julia Mason, Roberto D'Angelo, Sanya Abruzese, and William Malone.
What's interesting about Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine is not only its list of supporters and old guard, but also the kind of people the organization is willing to working with. William Malone, the president of SecM, has rubbed shoulders with a lot of people from American College of Pediatricians. Take, for example, this letter to the editor signed by Michael Laidlaw, Quentin Van Meter, Paul Hroes, Andre Van Mull, and William Malone from 2018, where they argue...
Yeah, I guess like the other issue is with this whole conspiracy theory thing, it kind of just draws attention to how much you're making a guilt by association argument. Like the fact that it's just, oh, this guy spoke to this guy, and they're all bad. Okay, that's not really an argument. Hey Kermit, good to have you here again.
Against the use of puberty.
Can you have a cheeky wank to trans porn and still be a proper bloke? Yeah, I would say, well, if anything, that kind of makes you more of an alpha, right? Because you are like kind of reaffirming that you're like a manly man by implicitly, with your heterosexual energy, feminizing the feminized, estrogenized men to whom you're masturbating to, right? You know, it's like, if anything, that's like a true proper bloke. That's a real Brexit geezer move of you, especially if the trans people are like foreign, because then it's like, oh look, they aren't proper men and they're foreigners, and here I am, a decent Brexit geezer, and I'm just being a dude, just being all manly and sexual and virile.
Bloggers and subtly propagate the idea of gender exploratory therapy.
Of the 5 authors, all except William Malone is a member of American College of Pediatricians.
I know it's hard to remember.
Okay, look, I know this is weird, but like, isn't it kind of funny that William Malone, you would expect him to be the exception, right? Because they're like, ooh, except William alone. And that works because obviously he is William alone, right? Like he has to be the exception because he's, you know, it'll be like, oh, everyone did this thing except William alone. Because he was the only one not doing it. It's William alone.
All these names, but this Paul Hroes is the same Paul Hroes who served as an...
I will also say, yeah, like the fact so many different random names are being brought up is something that does have me kind of sometimes being like, oh wait, who's that guy? Like at this point, I think like a safe bet is just to assume that like if someone's brought up, they probably said something about pedophilia and they're probably not actually very relevant to the trans thing. Like when in doubt, those are the 2 consistent things that define this guy's like guilt by association playbook.
Expert witness for Kira Bell in the chapter on puberty blockers. The same Paul Hroes who said, "Some children are born in this world to suffer and die."
American College of Pediatricians, or ACPEDS, is not to be confused with American Academy of Pediatricians, or AAP. AAP was funded almost a century ago, and they're interested in safety for children, whether through recommendation in regards to car seats, wanting to ban child-targeted advertising, or through gun safety regulations. AC Peds, on the other hand, was founded in 2002 and is interested in other kinds of safety for children. They preach abstinence-only sex education, are strictly anti-abortion and same-sex marriage. And when
To be fair, like being anti-abortion, that's pretty important for children's safety if we're counting babies in the womb as children. Like that's pretty important. Having said that, if we're counting like 14-year-old girls who are pregnant as children, then maybe being entirely against abortion could have some issues. I was just gonna say I haven't actually conceded a goal yet, but I think I'll be able to get back on track.
When I say same-sex marriage, I mean they equate homosexuality with pedophilia.
Michel Cretella, the former president of AC Peds, also once served on the board of directors at NARF.
Oh, can I say, I said this before, but like when people equate homosexuality with pedophilia, you're kind of like, oh, okay, so you don't have a problem with being gay, right? Because if you just think about it logically, if you had a problem with being gay, you would criticize being gay. But if you're saying like, oh, being gay, that's pedophilia, you're kind of implicitly saying, you know, that actually being gay, that's not a problem, right? Because think about it, like I'm against murder. I wouldn't be like, oh, you know, the problem with murder is that people who murder, they give you back VHS tapes that you lent them, and they didn't rewind them. So you have to, like, before you watch your movie, you have to go back and rewind it yourself. Isn't that annoying? No, you say, well, the problem with people who murder is that they murder. So when you say, oh, you know, the problem with gay guys is that they're pedophiles, you're kind of tacitly, what you're basically saying there is that you actually don't have a problem with gay guys. Because if you had a problem with gay guys, you just say the problem with gay guys is that they're gay, right? Saying like, oh, the problem with gay guys is that they're pedophiles. Okay, so the fact they're gay guys, that's not the problem.
Incidentally, NARF, the original conversion therapy organization for homosexuality, was formerly advised by George
NARF, like Pinky in the Brain, like NARF.
Speakers and was founded by Joseph Nicolosi, who I might have forgotten to mention Zucker and Bradley referenced in regard to prevention of homosexuality in their book.
In 2017, the Department of Justice wanted to include gender identity into Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act. This section specifies who and how you are allowed to discriminate in health and federal financial assistance programs. If passed, gender identity and by extension trans people would also be covered and thereby prohibited to discriminate against on par with race, sex, color, national origin, age and disability. Then, in 2018, the Trump administration overruled the inclusion, something then labeled
the cruelest thing the Trump administration has done to trans people yet.
Okay, well, hold on a minute, yeah. I was going to say the cruelest thing in general. I was going to be like, well, I think they've done like some cruel things. But to be fair, cruelest thing they've done to trans people, well, that's a lot less, that's a lot more broad. Oh, I should have taken a moment to actually, I shouldn't, whatever, I missed that.
A host of people wrote in support of this decision.
Michel Cretella of AC Peds was spearheading the petition to uphold the scientific definition of sex. Other signatories were Quinton Van Meter.
I don't actually know, like, when it says, like, stop discrimination with the Affordable Care Act, what does that actually mean? Like, does that just mean that you would have to, like, give someone surgery if they're trans? So it's almost like, you know, because to me, I'm not going to lie, like, the whole concept of health insurance is a little bit weird, because it's kind of like, I mean, people do get sick all the time. But, like, health insurance is something that you can basically just say you have. Isn't that a bit confusing? Because you're just like, yep, I'm trans, spend... Like, considering all of the things people desperately need that health insurance companies don't want to spend money on, yeah, I'm not really surprised that they wouldn't want to then have to spend money on someone just saying, yep, I'm trans. It's like, okay, well, let's immediately get you all of this, like, surgery and stuff. Yeah, that's kind of... I mean, to be honest, like, based on how they treat, like, much more serious issues, you wouldn't expect them to be really accommodating of the trans thing. Unless, of course, you've got a really high, deductible? Is that what it's called? I'm too British for this conversation, but yeah. I keep getting adverts for, like, private healthcare. from like on YouTube, and I'd be like, literally the first thing I say is like, why would you have private healthcare when we got the NHS? And like, oh, that's a good question, but actually, you know, there is a reason. It's that way you get to give us more money, you know. But yeah, I don't know. NHS. My local doctor is actually really nice, so.
Paul McHugh, Michael Laidlaw, Paul Cruz, Susan Bradley, Mike Yu, who's from Canada, Michael Bailey, Laura Haynes, and Tony Perkins.
Other signatories range from Catholic university departments to the former CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom, a conservative Christian group who wants to outlaw abortion, prohibit same-sex marriage, and who defended state-enforced sterilization for...
Yeah, like, all you're showing here is that conservatives are conservative, and that conservatives... Oh, hello, we're actually about to lose. Conservatives and gender criticals both disagree with the trans movement. It's like, yeah, we actually already knew that. This is not, you're not like exposing some big secret here. This was well understood. Right, I might have to bring on a better left back, or indeed centre back, or right back, centre back, left mid. That would be a bit weird, but I almost want to do it. Let's do this. We're gonna put a left mid. Okay, wait, let's switch them around. Yeah, we go. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay, cool. And then should we switch out Godfrey? I think maybe we should. For what? Oh, we don't actually have a great... Oh, wait. Okay, yeah, we don't have a great centre mid. In fact, we'd be going down. Oh, my mouth keeps making noises. Anyway. I don't know, but he'd be faster. I don't know. We'll go for it. We'll go down in terms of thingy, but up in terms of speed. We definitely don't want to bring on a worse striker. That would be a very bad idea. All right.
Trans people in Europe. But AC Pets seems to be just far enough removed from the anti-trans network. Moll, Mita, and Cruella don't really present themselves as experts on trans healthcare. You could argue that it's only a few bad apples who engage with the nationalistic right wing. The anti-trans network does their best to keep their hands clean, yet
that was a penalty,
only
right?
one
Yeah,
step
lovely.
removed from...
I was like, that's a penalty every day of the week. If I don't get this in, I'm gonna cry. Just to clarify, it's not only a few bad apples. Actually, you're not a bad apple at all, but for engaging with this stuff. All right, okay. Let's go. Okay, I really don't want there to be any sort of lag. Okay, and boom. And down to the left. Please don't. Fucking no. No. That was... I should have gone much further. That was really wank. Okay. Let's make up for that with a... Nope. Okay. I'm really annoyed. I am so annoyed.
The nationalistic and conservative right wing. Except when they're not. Let me show you.
The Kelsey Coalition is another disbanded anti-trans organization, founded by someone under the pseudonym Catherine Cave after their child came out as trans. Their mission statement is, essentially, to keep that from happening to any other parent. Catherine Cave, by the way, is also the person who published the piece that Bev Jackson of LGB Alliance shared on Twitter. If you remember, this is the one where Bev Jackson argues for working with the Heritage Foundation. And this is how the Celtic Coalition introduced themselves. History is replete with medical scandals, frontal lobotomies to treat mental illness, forced sterilization to control undesirable populations, the infamous Tuskegee experiment. Indefensible, unethical medical procedures were performed for years. Why did it take so long to stop them? History is repeating itself.
Shit.
What the organization says is fairly insignificant, but what it can tell us is not. Active between 2019 and 2020 with only 6 outwardly facing members, 4 of whom are anonymous parents, this abandoned website seems like any of the other anti-trans farms with only a shell of infrastructure, plastered with the same regurgitated speaking points. So let's first connect it back. You see, they are one of the few organizations to publicly work with right-wing think tanks.
Okay, I'm busy being annoyed. Also, what do you mean? So yeah, they're one of the few organizations. So who cares? Like, even if all of them were working publicly with right-wing think tanks, that wouldn't prove they were right-wing. Also, by the way, it wouldn't prove they're wrong, because right-wing think tanks aren't wrong on everything. Like, literally, there are organizations that are literally right-wing think tanks, but they're still correct. So you're not even debunking anything. Yeah, this is just ridiculous. And again, I'll point out, I've pointed this out before, the very fact that you think showing something is right-wing should give gender criticals pause shows that deep down you acknowledge that gender criticals aren't right-wing. Because otherwise it wouldn't give them pause.
Thanks.
The Celtic Coalition formed a very close relationship with the Heritage Foundation during its one functioning year. One of the 6 members were Michael Laidlaw from AC Pets, the same Laidlaw who works with William Malone. In 2019, one of the anonymous parents was featured.
So he works with William Maloney, so it's just those two, no one else. Oh, come on, come on, come on. This is in every day of the week. This is in every day of the week. Oh, fuck me. Okay, I'm locked in. I'm locked in, absolutely. I could not be more locked in. I think at this point it's pretty much impossible that I'm going to win, but I can at least draw. Oh, there we go. Okay. This will be insane if we do this. I mean, look, you can see that guy, he's rushing. I mean, look, we've got the draw surely, but we've got to do all out attack. This is insane. This is everything. We're throwing everything at this. We've got to put everything in. Throw everything and the kitchen sink. You got 1 minute, dude. You got 1 minute. Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. Okay, come on, come on, come on. No, okay, we've. Oh my goodness me, we're so stupid. Okay, we got lucky, but whatever. Okay, it's fine. I mean, we can try and boot it up there. It's not gonna go well. Okay, it's gonna be over. 1 minute is not that long in this game. There we go. Yeah. Oh, whatever. Okay, we got to draw. We got to draw, everyone. Things could be worse. All right, so we'll end with that, and well, let's get up the highlights. Yeah, as for that video from this dude, we'll finish it next time, surely. Yeah. Well, we didn't make actually that much progress this time, but whatever, we will. We'll make more progress next time. I think we should be on track to finish this in not that long. I mean, you know, we've now pretty firmly established there's no good argument here. That miss penalty, that will haunt me for the rest of my life. That was really stupid. I mean, that miss too, whatever. Who cares? Anyway, all right. Bye, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I hope you are having a wonderful new year. I'll see you all later. Bye.